be suspicious. What are they doing? Only one that's going to be in office are those that are amenable and answerable to them. I can't get in office. You can't get in office. You have to be selected. They put you up and they take you down. If they lose control of you, you're out of there. It's also important that we understand one of the responsibilities we have as being Christians are to preserve the faith. Jesus called his believers salt. Salt is used primarily as a preservative. Paul the Apostle says, I am set for the defense of the gospel. Jude says, we ought to earnestly contend for the faith that was once delivered unto the saints. Without question, we are living in the times of deceptions, the end times, the end days. It's upon us. We're not heading towards the end times, but we're in the end times. And there are certain prophetic things that are occurring right before our eyes. As I said, as a result of September the 16th, I predict that things were going to turn for the worse, and they are. With this bombing that took place in India, believe me, it was certainly planned, it was orchestrated, it was well financed, and just as I had predicted on Wednesday, I said, now what they're going to do, they need another pretext, that is America and our NATO forces and Afghanistan, to annihilate Pakistan. And the president of India said that he's going to hold everyone accountable and that there would be reprisals, retaliation for those that support terrorism. And I said Wednesday, if you remember, I said, now expect them to say that the terrorists came out of Pakistan. As my mother would say, sure enough, they said they came out of Pakistan. So I received 2 emails from Pakistan. He said the Muslims are worried, the Christians are worried, and the government is worried. And he forwarded me the Pakistani paper that is in English and an Indian paper in English talking about the imminent annihilation of Pakistan. Now, the government is concerned. They are on high alert. They are expecting American forces and our NATO allies and Afghanistan, as well as India that has Pakistan surrounded, to be under attack at any time. I've written them letters, I've talked to them, tried to assure them that God is still in control. Today I spent about 2.5 hours trying to get some scriptures together to encourage the brethren over in India as well as Pakistan. And email came, he said, we have great fear over in our country. This is Pakistan. And I was trying to stabilize their faith. What makes it so eminently more dangerous is that President-elect Obama said that he intends to send more troops over to the Afghanistan border. It's not for Afghanistan because there are just pockets of resistance in Afghanistan. So common sense tells you that if they're going to send troops, if President-elect Obama is going to send troops, it's for invasion purposes. Here's the thing that I make a prediction on. I'm not saying it's a probability. I'm saying it's a possibility. I think the fear that mankind has had about nuclear war might occur over in India and Pakistan because there are so many people over there that the powers that be consider those people to be expendable. That simply means you have so many people, they have no value. Life has no value. Pakistan is the only Muslim country that has nuclear weapons with the ability to deliver them warheads short range. So India is right next to them. India hates Pakistan. Pakistan hates India. America and India are friends, are allies, and India hates China, that's on one side of their border, and they hate Pakistan, that used to be a part of India, on the other side. And you see mounting tension that you can expect war to escalate, not because of what I see, but because of what the Bible has to say. No one, the present administration or the administrations to come in the near future, are going to resolve the war issue. No one in the present administration or the coming administration is going to resolve the economy. It is impossible. It's out of control. There's absolutely no way to fix the economy but to start anew. And that's what they intend to do, is to start anew. Again, I must remind you that Wall Street does not, even though it's the financial capital of the world, they don't control the economy. The economy is controlled out of D.C., not by Congress, not by the senators, not by the president, but by the IMF, International Monetary Fund, located in Washington, D.C. Every country, every currency in the world is controlled by this organization that we established in 1944 in New Hampshire, and the other entity called the World Bank, which is headquarters in Washington, D.C. Then there is the G7, which we started and controlled. That was started in America in 1967, I think it was, the G7. Don't quote me on the date. They control all the trade goods of any exporting and importing country. So all the control of the financial stability is in Washington, D.C., controlled and owned by foreign bankers or international bankers. Well, what is their goal? Real simple. Every country in the world is in debt. They owe monies to the IMF or the World Bank, and they are controlled by a group of elite bankers, and that's irrefutable. You cannot deny it. Every country. So it stands to reason that because countries cannot pay their mounting debt, that they will capitulate. They say, all right, we will offer a currency. One currency is easier to manage than 180, 190 currencies. So it makes sense. You're going to forgive me for money that I cannot pay back if I accept a new currency. It's academic. It will happen. And within the context and scope of the Bible, prophecy, nuclear war, it's probably going to happen, but not here in America. America, the grounds here are too sacred. The Luciferians, those that rule the world, consider America to be the land of Atlantis, the lost continent, and that this is a special place. So I don't anticipate or believe it's a possibility, but not a probability, that we will have a nuclear warhead coming this way. But America is taking all the precautions it can, because China, again, I must remind you, have the capability of, with intercontinental missiles to reach American soil. Russia has the capability with intercontinental missiles, warheads to reach American soil. So we don't want to have a head-on confrontation with them, because this piece of real estate is probably the most sacred piece of real estate in the world to those that are controlling the world. I remind you again of what President Kennedy said. If you don't believe it, he said in 1961-63 down in New York City. So we don't want to have a head-on confrontation with them, because this piece of real estate is probably the most sacred piece of real estate in the world to those that are controlling the world. I remind you again of what President Kennedy said. If you don't believe it, he said in 1961-63 down in New York City, Waldorf Astoria Hotel, before the American Press Gathering Association. He says, state that there's a monolithic conspiracy to destroy America. So we're going back into the 60s. Well, it has not died. It still exists. The Bible calls that monolithic conspiracy to destroy America secretly is called the rulers of darkness of this world. It doesn't matter who has been in office, who has been the president for the last 100 years. It doesn't matter. Presidents of the United States do not make decisions. It is the policymakers that put them in office that make all of the decisions. As I've told everyone, when you think that President-elect Obama, they spent almost $800 million on his campaign. When someone spends $800 million on your campaign, they control you. It's all about control. No president, no vice president will ever be elected as a candidate unless it is total control by the powers that be, and money still rules the world. The Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. That's facts. You cannot refute it. And so based on that, the volatile times which we're living in now, I will say this. When President-elect Obama attacks Afghanistan, it is going to arouse and anger the world of Islam, and they are going to target America. Now, it's not going to be anything nuclear, but maybe something like the 9/11 Trade Center, something like that. But you can expect isolated attacks in America. If that does not occur, if the IMF, the Federal Reserve, continue to play with the economy, now businesses are going bankrupt, and it's going to get worse. To the point that the dollar, as I told you a month ago, $1 bill is worth 4 cents. That was before the bailout started. It was worth 4 cents. The more bailouts, it will devaluate the dollar to the dollar's worth 0. So that means you have $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 in the bank and it's not worth anything. Well, they will make a deal with you. If you accept a new currency, which will be for the benefit of all, then instead of losing $10,000, your $10,000 would be $3,000. Well, common sense says a little bit of something is better than a whole lot of nothing. Always remember the old saying, a little bit of something is better than a whole lot of nothing. As I was telling them in Pakistan, and I said it on the broadcast today, you had better learn to make adjustments right now. No one is going to improve the economy or the affairs or the conflicts or the volatility in the world. No one. You know why? Because this is here. And watch for the key words. I'll tell you 3 key words to watch for. It means, one, when you keep hearing the word international, New World Order, global or globalism, and not government, but governments, when you hear those words, that means those are the code words that we're getting closer. We're going to make the world capitulate. What they did in India. India is the largest democracy in the world. They attacked the financial district. They destabilized that region over in Asia by attacking it. I think it was 10 assaults at one time. Well planned, well orchestrated, well financed. Let me give you an illustration about how close we are to in the end. Not close to the end, but in the end. Let's take President Kennedy. He was assassinated. Well, poor people didn't assassinate him. Poor people could not orchestrate anything like that. It had to be the powers that be. You don't just assassinate a president of the United States. Then on top of that, his brother that was threatening to investigate his brother's assassination, Robert Kennedy, the Attorney General of America, he is assassinated. Then it gets a little worse. Now, let's look at Dr. Martin Luther King. He wasn't assassinated because of racism. It was because of what he knew. If you remember when he was walking in Selma and Alabama, and he didn't have all that entourage around, they could have easily killed him. He was going in the Klan territory. If they wanted to get rid of him, they could have easily got rid of him. But who got rid of him? The powers that be. They put you up and they take you down. If they lose control of you, you're out of there. And that's the whole story. Again, let me say this, and we're going to go into the Bible, let you know the times that we're living in. The drug epidemic, I've said for years, it will never get better. Doesn't matter what anyone does. Doesn't matter what the politicians say. As I told you, I can go in any place in America, a complete stranger, in less than a half an hour. I can buy any drug off the street that I want to, and I'm a perfect stranger. And yet the law enforcement that lives in those neighborhoods cannot stop the flow of drugs. We had a situation here at our school. We called the police station. We told them the cars, they were luxury cars in back of the school. It's a federal offense to solicit and sell drugs near school property. I don't know how many times we called the police department. We called the public commissions director. We even told a policeman police officer that we knew, said, look, they're dealing drugs. Wouldn't touch it. Wouldn't mess with it. So it is by design not to stop because there's too much money involved. Anything where money is involved, it's not going to stop. They move from here to here to here. Now look, most of us, common sense, we can look at a car and realize that that person, or think or assume that that person that is driving that car can't afford to drive that car. That's common sense. Is that right? Isn't that common sense? We said, wait a minute. How is he or she driving that car? Well, the police officers see the same thing. Well, why? Because there are certain things you do not touch. You do not put your hands on. You don't mess with drugs. Too much money involved. Well, who's controlling it? The government. At one time, I remember when a guy by the name of Dick Gregory was talking about, I thought he was crazy. Well, when you can, again, I'm going to tell you this, and we're going to go to the Bible now that I have your attention. By satellite, we know where all the drugs are grown, how they're packaged, how they come into America, and then all of a sudden, the satellites no longer work when they come into America. Well, that's control. We have said they come in through the airplanes. What airplanes? We know what airplanes they come in because it's about control and it's about destabilizing America. Now, America is ready to accept everything because they're scared of terrorists. They don't want any more terrorists here. And people are losing their monies. They're willing to compromise. A little bit of something is better than a whole lot of nothing. They're going to compromise. As I told you, September the 16th, I say expect the gas prices to go down instead of go up. They were predicting that the gas prices were going to go up. I said, no, it's going to go down. You know why? You don't have to be a genius. They needed to pacify the people, give them, as Brother John was talking about the Hegelian dialectic process. And I don't want to talk too much about it. What you do, you advance 5 steps. Do you take 3 steps back? You give them 5 steps of progress. Give them, as Brother John was talking about the Hegelian dialectic process, and I don't want to talk too much about it. What you do, you advance 5 steps. Do you take 3 steps back? You give them 5 steps of progress. Do you take 3 steps back? In other words, they're unconscious of what is happening, and that's the little game that they play with us. Having said that about the wickedness that is in the world, we live in it, we are part of it, but we don't have to be wicked or evil. Jesus said, Father, I pray that you take them not out of the world, but keep them from the evil. Say, don't take them out. No, we're not going to be transplanted. We are the salt. If you take all the good out of the world, you have nothing but evil. So we must preserve and defend the faith. Having said that, let me draw your attention to the 3rd chapter of Revelation. Again, there are 7 churches that are addressed. This is about 1900 years ago. This was written, and I had better show you chapter 1 first, and we come back to 3, so you understand this, and please don't forget it. Chapter 1, verse 1. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass, and he sent and signified or symbolized it by his angel unto his servant John. You know what Jesus is saying? I'm going to let my church know what's going to happen in advance. If you skip down to verse number 3, blessed is he that readeth. We're talking about the book of Revelation, that readeth, and they that hear the words of this prophecy. Prophecy. History written in advance. Prophecy. History written in advance. Say it's here. Outlined, highlighted, not all the details, but all of the pertinent events that are going to occur that are necessary for us to discern how to be prepared in the Bible. It's right here. So he takes 7 churches and he symbolizes the churches because he says it's going to be in symbolism. So this church in the 14th verse of chapter 3 existed. It was in existence, but there were certain characteristics in that church that were going to be characteristic in a particular era or a particular time, even though this little church will not be in existence, but the characteristics of that church would be dominant, prevalent, and pervasive. So we have to deal with prophetic characteristics. In verse 14, and unto the angel of the church of the Laodiceans write, these things saith the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the beginning of the creation of God. I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. This is Jesus speaking. I would that thou were cold or hot. So then, because thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew or spit thee out of my mouth. This is the Lord talking about his church. He's talking about a spiritual condition that existed then and it exists today. This was foreshadowing what would be characteristic of the time in which we're living in. Here's the problem. Verse number 15, I know thy works. In other words, I know what you're involved in. I know about your activities. He said, they're not cold, they're not hot. Say, you cannot distinguish what you are by what you're doing. You're half of this and you're half of that. He said, I would that you were either good or evil, bad or good, be one or the other, but do not be lukewarm or straddle the fence. So he is convicting and condemning the church for being half of this, half of that, part of this and part of that. He said, no, you won't do that. Now, to show you how merciful God is, he tolerated the church. He trusted the church. He gave the church the benefit of the doubt about decision making. See, every one of us will make our own decision. They made a decision to be part of this and part of that. He said, your works, you're neither cold nor hot. He said, I would that you would be one or the other. Verse 16. So then, because thou art lukewarm, you're not cold, you're not hot, but you're in between. You're in that gray area. You're straddling the fence. It's called ambiguity. He said, because of that, I will spit you out of my mouth. God is saying you don't have to worry about the devil. He said, I will take the initiative and eradicate you. Now he's warning the church. He could have did it without warning. He's warning the church as the churches today are being warned by all the signs that are so visible that all you have to do, you don't even have to know the Bible. to know that the world was in a volatile situation. You have to do what we have been programmed not to do. You have to do what we have been programmed not to do and are conditioned not to do, and that is to think. We will not think. Anything they say on the news, anything that's in the newspaper, it stops us from thinking because we assume that they are completely honest. And nothing could be further from the truth. Let me explain this about veracity. It's called veracity. It means that you're so close to sticking to the truth that you won't even try to stretch it when you think about veracity. Well, if you pick up the newspaper, the headline lead story in Troy, Schenectady, the Troy Record, the Albany Times-Union, the Schenectady Gazette, the Los Angeles Times, the Chicago Times, what's this one in New York Times, all of them verbatim say the same thing. It wasn't like that before. How can a paper in Los Angeles and a paper in New York say the exact same thing verbatim? Because all of them are controlled by one source. The only thing that the publishers, I'm not talking about the little publishers, I'm talking about the money publishers, they don't care about local news. You can report, slant, do anything with local news, they don't care about that. But national and international policies, they're concerned about, so you have to print what the AP, American Press, or the UPI, United Press Association, what they say, and that's what's printed. They do not allow the editor to use his discretion because that's called control. All right, show you how they control it. It's obvious, 1987, as I told you, during President Reagan, he was the president of the United States during that time. Oliver North, during the Contra hearing, because our CIA, our government, was buying and trading drugs for Contras, making money on drugs and taking the money and buying guns from other countries to give to Contras in South America. They were not authorized. That was the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. They did it on their own. Well, who's controlling them? They're supposed to be under the auspices and control of the President of the United States. How does the CIA make a policy where they decide that they are going to sell drugs to raise money because Congress would not give them any money or appropriate any money to bail out the Contras to overthrow the government in San